The same time? Wow! Welcome back to
Elyse
TV, man. We both arrived at the same time. You know how hard that is sometimes.
And I'm in the middle.
We wouldn't let Chris Morisoli go, so we trapped him in between us,
God,
so he has
awesome.
no way out.
This is the thing where this is going to be a fun show for you guys today because we talk a lot about personalities in the wine game, and it's been a lot of just us here in front of the camera. So I really appreciate you coming by and hanging out with us today.
Well, I noticed the ratings had gone down a little bit. You guys
So true,
in,
so true.
Hopefully I can boost those up a little bit.
And, you know, that's right. I got two single guys on the show today, man. I'm like, I'm gonna let you guys run the show. I'm gonna stand over here muttering under my breath the entire time.
Yeah, we're open for consulting advice whenever you need it.
Should we, Grant? Can you stream their contact information at the bottom of the show, man? You know,
Yeah, you want me to
like
link to OnlyFans in the
Chinese
bio?
food and watching the ring.
OnlyFans. I need a little side gig, a little side hustle, if you don't mind.
So I tell you what, we're going to jump in and taste some wines, but before we do that, if you want to kind of let some of our enthusiasts know, they've met you a little bit over time, and we've certainly talked up the vineyard quite a bit, but if you want to give them a snapshot in time of what it is to kind of be fourth, fifth generation between meeting your dad and kind of you stepping in, and if you want to touch on a little bit of how much freedom do you get stepping into a role like that, and how much you're kind of like, well, we've been doing it this way for 50 years. How about if we just do that?
We can basically continue that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So without further ado,
Cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Chris Morisoli here of Morisoli Vineyards, and yeah, we're just gonna go through a nice vertical tasting today. But let's see a little bit about me, just to help the ratings out here.
Yeah.
So I fifth
Still
generation farmer in Rutherford. So it was actually the ranch that we call Morisoli today was really started in 1902 by my great grandpa Rocco. He came to
Rocco Morisoli.
A really cool name, right?
My new favorite name, man.
There you go.
Right.
He came. It was only
Rocky
there for
Marciano.
like a really short amount of time, and then he left the picture. We don't know why, but his wife Lodovina was actually the gal that kept the whole thing together, really. She kind of held it together, remarried, and then had my great grandpa Plinio, which also
Great
cool,
names.
right? Very cool.
Lineage.
Yeah. And
Like
then
there's a whole series of wines
that
with
was-
these names: Rocco, Plenio,
Lodovina.
Lodovina.
Lodovina. Like I
Lodovina,
see
right?
these as like one.
Yeah, right?
Like I can see a series like
Yeah,
this.
like a whole
man.
pallet load of vino.
Until you get to the third generation, then it went to Phil, Gary, and Chris. So we became very Americanized quickly. But so anyway, yeah, the first three great. After that, we'll probably skip on the Phil, Gary, and Chris wines. But yeah, so we've been doing that since about 1902. That's what we claim as the first date. They really were kind of sharecropping. So they worked on a place called the Doak Ranch, which was really a lot of the Nebom, Manly, Bella Oaks area. And the Doak Ranch was a huge part of that Rutherford bench. And it actually went all the way to the Carmelite Monastery.
Okay.
By,
Wow.
by Oakville.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
And so they owned that whole section. And as far as we've been able to tell, they were kind of sharecropping. So they worked for them. And then in 1910, they actually bought that first 10-acre chunk of.
Because there was some transition in those era, like who actually owned the land, so to speak. Because once we turned Vallejo from landowner to escapee to inmate to state senator to land grant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no one really knew. So. But yeah, so that's kind of the lineage there, and then each generation kind of, was there and continued either adding on or subtracting land. And
You grew up on the land?
So, I grew up there on Nebom Lane. So with Jake and Elyse Corson, who were my neighbors.
Yeah.
Jake, what's up?
Cheers to Jake and Elyse. So they were the next door neighbor kids, and their parents Ray and Nancy started Elyse in 1987. Was the first official bottling.
Was Ray like that, underwear getting his paper in the morning guy? You're like, things I can't unsee. You're like, oh God,
I have signed a non-disclosure agreement. But man, they were fun. They were really fun neighbors. So yeah, they knew how to have a good time, and we had a blast living next door.
Seems like there were some children possibly conceived in your vineyard, in the soil. Possibly even you.
So I don't know about it. And
Maybe in this little vineyard back here.
I will plead the fifth on that and remain out of the loop.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so while we're going to chat and while we're going to keep going, we're going to start. We have 08, 09, 2010, 2011, 2012. We did 2013, Same theme as we did last week, where we're playing the same vintage in the 750 and the Magnum. We're still just exploring. You know, in our world, we've always been told the larger formats age differently, better, longer. You know, this kind of thing. And so we're always going to continue to run that experiment. And then, of course, we're finishing with one of our current vintages, the 2018, just to add a little icing to the cake. Now, normally, Brother Chris will be drinking with us on camera. Now, in addition to kind of being part of this legacy in Rutherford, you got a lot of irons in the fire, my friend. So the reason you're not drinking with us on camera today is...
So this is a great travesty of today, is I have to go fly tonight. My two other jobs.
So does Cubby, but you guys are doing far different runways, man. You know,
I'll keep my feet on my literal feet on the ground. Figuratively, I might be higher.
But yeah, I live every 5-year-old's dream, right? So helicopters, fire trucks, and tractors. I got to go do the helicopter thing tonight.
God, that's right. I didn't even think about that,
yeah,
man.
5-year-olds think I'm great. Once people get older and actually get to know me, they realize like I'm not that cool.
I think 25 to 55-year-old women.
I was just going to say, man.
So unfortunately, but yeah, so that's a great travesty. So I can smell like it's going to.
So I'm pouring him. I just poured him some 08. He will dump right there. He's not even going to taste. He is a smarter man than I.
That way, otherwise this would be Exhibit A of the 15-6, which in Army talk is the investigation to remove my my wings. So.
Well, 15-6, better than the 187.
Cheers.
We'll pull the wings off and moths together later, but let's not do that to him today, man, you know?
God, it smells great, though. This is the...
This is the 08.
This is the 08, and I would say of the vintages that I kind of looked into to open, the 08's the... I don't want to use the word surprise because I know there's quality involved here, but man, this thing is alive. It is as dark as all get out. The fruit is still rich. The structure is alive. And by far, this thing has still got plenty of legs to keep rolling down the road. I'm continually impressed with the balance point. So whenever we have wine drinkers that come to us, and Cabernet is one of those grapes, man, they walk in the door, and if they're a Cabernet drinker, there's no way to pour them Cabernet in a void. Right? It's like, well, I'm going to compare it to this. I'm going to compare it to that. And it's only like this. And it's not the vintage of that. It's a tough grape in terms of its comparison kind of arena. And so for us, Morisoli has always been one of the perfect California vineyard Cabernets to take a lot of my sort of Bordeaux and European guys and show them that there is balance afoot. Yeah. There are things we can do in California vineyards to create that balance point. And it's not all, you know, massive oak and massive alcohol and you know, they call us kind of Coca-Cola sugar heads. It sounds like there's a little bitterness in there, but that's a different show.
My dad does like to put Coke or Pepsi into his red wine. So
yeah.
We usually keep that on the DL, but we're fully open.
Very popular.
Did you grow up with any booze in the house at all?
Yeah, but it was mostly wine coolers.
Mostly wine coolers?
Yeah.
Sure.
So there you go. Yeah.
Most successful.
Which actually seems funny, but if you've ever tried it, it's actually pretty
They are pretty tasty.
Just don't tell me what you're doing it with. Elyse Cab. So.
Yeah, I mean, White Claw is wine coolers 2.0, basically.
Right.
A little carbonation. Yeah, what I love about the Morisoli Vineyard and this part of Rutherford is that soil component, that what's become known as the Rutherford dust. You get your fruit up. I'm going to 09 because this was based on an earlier show. If I do the rabbit ears, I have to.
Sorry, this is a place of truth and honesty, man.
Yeah, don't get caught up in that. You don't have to drink.
The thing about 08 we have to remember is living where I do in San Helena, the propellers that we use for frost protection. So
to keep people cool.
That's what I thought, man. So that's why I keep turning them on in July. This was one of those years, 08, where they were on every single day for like a month. It was the worst frost season in 08, man. It just never went away. It was like 30 days of it. And for those of you, frost, we get rain. We get warm temperatures like this, right, in January, February. All of a sudden the vine wakes up and goes, hey, let's start our year. And then the coldest month of the year slaps us right in the face, or late rains. So this is really, this starts kind of our 60 days of troublesome kind of weather stuff.
Don't forget to say hi, Mom.
Oh, is she watching?
Hi, Mom!
Yeah.
Hope I'm not disappointing you guys.
Dude, thanks for tuning in. You just doubled our viewership.
There's always adoption.
That's true.
And the other theme that I kind of, you know, every one of these shows we've been doing with verticals, I kind of have to go back in the time machine. This was an education for me. So while you guys are chatting, I'm going to overlap with. I put the Billboard Top 100. I picked the #1 song of that vintage, according to Billboard. So anybody, you got a guess for what it was in 08?
Oh,
Grant, you can
Billboard.
chime in if you, you know. Oh, you already saw the
I was thinking the We Believe Warriors because that was their playoff run in the beginning of 08.
Right.
So let's see. During that time.
So,
Ooh, I don't know.
Beyonce's Single Ladies,
All
Put
of
a
them.
Ring on It.
Every single one. All the single ladies.
All right. So the greatest gratification for me looking up all these songs, by the way, is that I recognize very few of them. Not that I have, ultimate respect, for all y'all rock stars out there, but I don't listen to a lot of new music. I'm doing my best, man. I'm doing my best.
I feel, I don't know.
You're
I
more
was
of a
thinking
modern
Kanye
music
West
fan.
was already out a couple years by then. The College Dropout
Kings of
CD.
Leon were pretty big.
Oh, Kings
Right,
of
that's
Leon,
what I was thinking.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great call. Yeah, I won't get into why that sounds familiar. Kings of Leon, for sure.
We still have to be able to do these shows like with a split screen and going, here's the edited version, here's the raw version, so just blot your eye out so that you don't see the expletives on
Well, it's
the
only
other side.
1
Thank you,
year
yeah.
after Facebook came out, right? 07 was Facebook. So it's interesting. That's kind of the start of my being able to tie things in because it's like, oh, Facebook reminded me 10 years ago this happened.
So while we're going to jump in on the 09, I got a question from the grower standpoint. Like, we talk a lot about vintage, and we've got, reviewers and scores and our own blending sessions and all this. What's a great year for you? Like, when you walk away with going, man, that was a great year.
I think anytime the grapes get off the vine and everyone's happy.
Yeah. All the
So-
checks clear.
Yeah, it's kind of like landings, right? In helicopters, like you've got great landings and you've got good landings. You know the difference.
Everybody survives in a great landing, and you have nothing to fix.
Yeah, wow, you got it. Yeah, a great landing you can use the helicopter again. A good landing you can walk away from. So.
Yes,
Yeah.
question in the back.
How would you detect a Morisoli Cab in a blind tasting?
Ooh, gosh, that's a good question.
Whoa.
That is a
I
good
am not good
question.
at that, but I'll tell you who is my dad. He's really good at it.
Yeah.
And he always
Before or
can pick out
after
the
he has the
Morisoli one.
Coca-Cola?
Yeah, it's always
Always before.
That's the after dinner drink.
If you were going to do it
yeah.
knowing that Elyse was the producer, this is the bounce back part of that question is you have to let me know what producer I would be trying to blind identify because they all have their own style. Because to me, it's that balance point.
Yeah.
Morisoli has this amazing combination of dense dark fruit, the way we looked at Napa for Cab, but the fine grained tannins. It's not afraid to be dry, but it's not that unrecoverable kind of tannin. And I like the fact that these wines were left with some scaffold, some structure to them. I'm not a giant fan of making a wine so lush and so plush that you forget the symbol clash at the end of the wine. Cabernet, it wants to be dry. That's what it wants. So try not to beat too much of that
And
out.
I think one thing I've always noticed with the Morisoli is it's got a really nice kind of curve to it. It's got a really good, it's got a balanced kind of flow to it. So it's not anything that doesn't leave you hanging. It kind of has a nice.
Yeah, it's like
Nice-
the bell curve
So
in a
we
way.
need a visual.
So,
Is there a specific curve in mind that I can kind of attach?
36, 24.
Yeah, there we go.
But,
Only if she's
that's,
5'3".
that's Russell Bevan.
As artists like to call those exciting lines.
But no, it's just it's got a nice full. There's a lot of mouthfeel in there. It's really it's kind of a full body. But it's not like you said. It's not overdone. And one thing I think Ray and Nancy were great with was ensuring you could taste the grape. They were always really big on that and not over manipulating and not
Very
overdoing
much so.
anything. So
Bravo,
you can really
yeah.
taste what makes the site special, which is.
And I think that can be interesting for you as a grower because sometimes I think you contribute to some of these great wineries, but they can do such a manipulation in the cellar sometimes. You're like, I have no idea what my vineyard represents. There's so much going on there. So I really think this is an excellent way to kind of get a visual. Are all sections of Morisoli the same?
They're not all created equal. No.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
So we have the favorite spot I think we have for the vineyard is kind of in the section where Ray used to get this. This is right by the old White House, which is where Ray and Nancy used to live, and that's definitely a sweet spot. That's really a nice area, and that just kind of is a little bit more gravelly. It's right off of the kind of all that alluvial fan that comes down. I know everyone talks about that all the time, but it's true. And it's a really healthy vineyard. It's still a really healthy section of the vineyard.
What's funny because it looks like they built Kneebaum Lane on the fan.
Yeah.
So if you literally stand on the road, you can
it
see
goes
where
both
it
ways.
tapers, on either side into Inglenook and then into Morisoli. I mean, it really is that spot. You can just see a road guy going, they've already got crushed gravel on the bed. I just have to pave right up the side of the mountain right there. It's awesome.
And for all the people at home that might not understand, when you talk about that rocky, gravelly kind of area leading into the alluvial, what will that give you? What's the benefit of that?
Well, just it wouldn't be great ground for tomatoes or corn, but it's actually kind of low in nutrients, but it's great for grapes because they struggle a little bit and they're able to get roots way down deep. So kind of what we do with this section with most of the vineyard is we allow it to really kind of dry farm it and just give it water when we have hot spells.
Yeah,
so
only when they need it.
Maybe every month, 2-3 weeks, if it's really hot, we'll give it a 10 or 12 gallons of water. And what that allows it to do is, helps the vines stay healthy during these hot spells, but it allows them to find their own water.
So when the show starts to wrap up, we have to ask Grant why the words dry farming make him giggle like a schoolgirl behind the camera.
We're not going to talk about biodynamics.
Yeah, by the way, 09 for me has more of the baking spice pantry. There's a little more cinnamon. There's a little bit more of that kind of baking spice, nutmeg, cinnamon for me. Yeah. The fruit is a little more lush in 08. The 09 is just a touch drier. There's just a little kind of... And it's funny, because the 08 for us, with all the weather problems, 09 comes right behind it as kind of more ideal growing conditions. It was the frost wasn't as bad, the weather
warm, easy kind of growing.
You didn't get the spikes of heat either. It was just we often talk about our favorite vintages, the ones where I can't remember a day of the weather. Mm-hmm. There were no monumental things that happened that year. We're just kind of like, wow, man, this is just great living here.
That's interesting with these two, because I feel like you just mentioned that the 08 was kind of more ripe fruit, and then the 09 drier. It's the opposite of what I know these two vintages to be just throughout Napa Valley. 9 is always more opulent fruit, not that the wine was made extracted, but it comes off as more extracted. And 8 is something that surprised me in being one of my favorite vintages. And it's still, this 08 is amazing, and so is 09. But I feel like there's a little role swap within what Elyse did that year.
I also feel like we're going through an era here in Napa where I think you started to see even classical vineyards like Morisoli getting cut into smaller and smaller parcels. I think you were starting to see more kind of that individual influence. I mean, let's face it, the vineyards were planted. It's not like we'd go, hey, the weather's great this year. Let's put Franc in. It'll love this weather. No, man. Those decisions had to be made 10 years before to
and we're not changing any farming practices either, I guarantee you.
Yeah. I can attest to that.
No.
But 09, 09 really was one of the really phenomenal vintages that we have here. It was at the French Laundry for a while. They may still have some of it there, but they had 09 Elyse at the Laundry.
French Laundry had a spectacular meal. We're one of the few groups at the French Laundry that got them to play Beastie Boys for us at the end of the night because we had the private dining room. And, well, this was full COVID though, so we were like full breezy, like they had the whole courtyard sat. It was impressive to see something at that level of dining pulled off like that as a lawn meal.
And then last year we did the 07 until we kind of sold out of what we really could at La Toque with Ken Frank, and then moved on to the 2010, which is my broadcasting transitional phase to say we're now on the 10. But that 10 stayed on their list with their A5 Wagyu beef course, and it was an awesome pairing.
And that was one of our really fun library wines that we've been offering here at the winery when we were still open for visitors. Was the 2010 to me showed that decade. Yeah. Here's a guy. I come into Napa and I'm buying wine from Silver Oak back in the day. And they're like 15 years. Everything you bought immediately they told you Napa was this 15-year mark when you should drink the wines. And I'm driving home going, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
7 to 10, 5 to 10.
I drank them that night. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I don't have any 2015s around, let alone 12s or 10s.
But this is such a sweet spot right now for me, especially the 9s, 10s.
Yeah.
11s, 12s are really
I agree.
in a great spot.
Now, here's the thing about 2010 though. Okay, so when you have spring rain, the vines wake up and they push. You got water, you got energy, boom, you get this great spring growth. Okay. Now you've got these full canopies and you've got like 80s instead of 100s or 90s in the summer. So now I'm not getting sunshine, I'm not getting airflow. So the first thing we do is you pull leaves. Yeah, baby, let's get those leaves off the vine and get the sun in there. And what happened to us in August and September?
100+
degrees, baby. The grapes are just like You could just hear them cooking out there.
Oak
man.
Knoll, they were all over the ground because they burnt themselves off. Certain farmers
Yeah, it's bad.
picked a few too many leaves that year, especially on the afternoon sun side where they just get baked.
Which is interesting because the way we plant, so you've got the row orientation, which is super critical when stuff like that happens, right? So we have majority of the vineyards all east-west,
Nice.
so you can kind of control that a little bit more and have this sprawl, and you can pick a few. But when you have those north-south ones, and that west side gets so battered by the sun, you really got to be careful how you.
And that's where learning, I think, farming, you start to change the alignment of that vineyard. You know, the vine doesn't chase the sun across the sky. So, like, if I'm checking weather patterns, it's not getting any cooler. So the whole redirecting of that perpendicular to the path of the sun, so I create that morning and afternoon side becomes, I think, pivotal for surviving kind of.
We'll still see burn on the end vines, but we can control a lot better inside.
And there's, with your family, you've had 100 years of experience, trial and error, and seeing where that sun sets. And I don't know, I guess the question would be, have you guys utilized any of like the latest and greatest equipment? Now there's 3D infrared about the soils, but also they have it mapped out to where the sun starts setting over here in August, but then by October, end of harvest, it's now setting over here.
Don't forget
row
the pendulum
orientation.
clips.
Like there's so much advanced technology, which I don't think his family needs
to break it to you,
as much.
I hate to break it to you, Cubby. With the exception of the John Deere, all of our other tractors are 1960s and earlier.
Were you the horse, and then the plow was?
And the plows are all about 1930s and 40s.
That's awesome.
So no, everything is.
Are they
like
Fulton
old
plows?
school. Old school. So, yeah.
Well, and also when maybe a lead-in question coming from that is, when was the last time you replanted a section of your vineyard? Not necessarily the section of fruit we get, but
right. Yeah. So the
from
last section was the section that went to Sequoia Grove. We pulled that out in about 4 years ago, so 2017. That came out about 10-acre block, and then we replanted that. So that's producing as of last year, and still going to Treasury a little bit to. Actually, you guys got a little bit of it this year.
Oh, nice.
So
Was
yeah,
that
that
cab
was
or
We're very persuasive.
14 rows there, so you're really, get in there, and it's great. I mean, it's all 03916 for the rootstock and Clone 4, which is desirable, and it's doing really well. So then our plan is to get rid of eventually the rest of that section, and then we change the road direction on that, so it's all east-west now, and that'll go all the way through, basically to the border of Inglenook, and then where Scarecrow kind of meets on the west side.
Okay.
For you ultimate geeks out there, 2010 also marked, I would say, one of the more successful stories about predation protection. 2010 is really when we celebrated the European grapevine moth being kind of eradicated.
Yeah.
We really kind of figured out how to do that without really kind of having to do anything crazy to the vineyard. This European, for those of you who don't know, these guys were so sneaky. Like the fruit all looked perfect in the vineyard. Everybody was happy. We would get it on the crush pad, and you'd break these clusters open, and these moths had hollowed out the inside and created these little botrytis like factories on the inside of these grape clusters.
And so what's the grapevine moth called?
The European grapevine moth.
That's it.
That's what it's
called.
called.
So it's not Pierce's disease.
It is not.
Phylloxera.
It was its own little fun little attachment. And
it's not the glassy wing sharpshooter.
What was the phrase I came across that I couldn't say without laughing? Mating disruption. See, he can't.
Yeah, it sounds like our life. Yeah, exactly. Single by choice, damn it.
Okay, now does anybody want to venture a guess what the #1 song in 2010 was?
Man. Ooh.
I went to New Orleans Jazz
It's actually
Fest in
Grant's
2010.
power song.
I went to Peru and Bolivia in 10. Got fired from 2 jobs.
Nice. Only got 2
More
jobs,
moto
lazy
and
man.
That's good.
Well, this is all in the same area. You'd have to travel too
I
far.
work 12 jobs, there's 3 day bars a night.
I'm trying to think of that.
Give me a hint.
Do you wake up in the morning feeling like anybody?
Who's that? Him?
Like a virgin? No.
Maybe P. Diddy?
So what was it? What's your
Diddy?
power song, Grant? What is it?
I never said that, but it's TikTok.
Yeah, from who?
Kesha?
Kesha,
Kesha.
I don't even know who Ketcha is, but Ketcha Fire is great.
Didn't she
That's
have
more
a,
reggae
she have a
roots.
dollar sign for her name? What was it?
That's Ty Dolla Sign.
I was gonna say maybe Nicki Minaj. That was the Nicki Minaj
2010.
time frame, man. 2010, 11.
I think 2010 would have been Mumford and Sons also.
Where were you in 2010?
Almost in Afghanistan. I was going to Afghanistan like January of 11.
Wow.
So I was getting ready. But yeah, that was
Whoa.
like it was busy time.
When did Venezuela come about?
Oh, when did that get back? I think it was
That's like
2014,
14.
15, yeah.
So we're moving on to the 2011 while we're chatting here, and 11. We get this a lot in the agricultural side, but 2011 was
No, I think
was
I am done.
challenging, man.
Here's
Like,
the mental.
let's put we get this timing sometimes in our business where the vine wakes up. Frost is one thing to fight. If it's raining, it's not freezing, so sometimes that's good news. But when the rain comes right around that March-April cusp, you get what's called shatter. So it's knocking flowers off the vines. And 2011 was one of those years where, the timing just sucked.
And it was late rain. We had rains in the
All the way to
in
June.
harvest.
Yeah,
and
oh my
late,
God, it just
it really.
All of us in Napa, it doesn't rain in June. Like, what is this? That was nutso, man.
But it's interesting because for as much as some people kind of talk down 11, it's really the ones that made it and did it well. And again, the winemakers credit here. They really are smelling great. I think the longer you go on these, the actually the better they get. And,
Yeah.
Really pretty.
Yeah, the
too.
structure is there with acidity, tannin, really firm.
almost more classic.
and direct.
Too.
Yeah.
Just a little
It's
bit
super
less.
juicy, dark fruit right down the mid too, though.
I bet you this is less alcohol. Was that 14?
Sometimes
14.5?
there's a copy and paste procedure.
14.5, 14.8, and 10 was 15.4. So.
Oh, wow, it worked.
Yeah.
Wow,
Look at
hey.
you. Don't leave everything you read.
Yeah, we didn't own the winery then, so.
That'd be great if we got up in the morning and just did that, like with your coffee, just a little quick litmus paper, and like, oh, look at that, I'm still at a 0.5 today. All right, good. Man. That's where I start my mornings, man.
That's what I do in my car every day before I take off.
Well,
Not
I
mandatorily.
was just saying, will it start without that?
Yes.
Now, my question is, why don't all cars work like that?
Right?
Like, shouldn't that be an automatic?
Right.
Car won't start without it, man.
My
Drink
question
responsibly out there, people. That's my disclaimer.
with the 2010 is where I feel like I started to get a little menthol kind of characteristic, and I've always thought, and I don't know if this is true, the source is here, but was there ever eucalyptus trees or anything around there? And maybe not, don't just say there was, because I'm here asking the question.
So,
But Heights Cellars, Martha's Vineyard in Oakville, there was that back corner. So there is some places in that vineyard that just has, even though they've taken out those trees, it's in the root system. We have it here at our winery, but I get it from Morisoli sometimes, and I'm just curious if there's ever been.
Maybe more of that would be the maybe a little more herbaceous, a little more.
And I get the
green,
herbaceous
but,
in the 2011, but the 2010 is not green.
No.
It's menthol.
I
More
see what you're saying,
eucalyptus.
yeah. So there was a huge, right on the border, right where we have, kind of where Bierstecker goes up, and I don't have a map, but right where Scarecrow is, there was a bunch of, like a wind drift row of all these eucalyptus trees.
Oh, there
and
was.
those were taken out in like the 40s.
Yeah.
Or something. But when they ripped that area again, they started pulling up these
all
huge,
the roots and
huge roots and chunks
okay.
of eucalyptus.
Cool.
So there was actually just to the kind of the west of us, not on ours.
When you come to the west side of Highway 29 in Napa, especially with the Morisoli Vineyard, there is the exchange between the ocean and coming up and down the valley. And the further the west you go, you get into the lee of the mountain and the lee of the wind, and so there's this very dead zone where it's a whole different growing condition. Then as you keep going towards Highway 29, you go into the wind tunnel. The wind is different from one side of your vineyard than it is to the other, almost marked by the house. It's almost the house is that dividing line between where the wind. So when we were out walking the vineyard the other day, I was like, wow, it's really pleasant up here. And then you walk down about 10 rows, you're like, hey, I think I'm in the...
And it's like kind of Engelnook, the knoll there, the winery knoll at Engelnook
Totally.
it prevents a north wind from kind of whipping through there.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, just like Blanquier is kind of guarded by a Chandon, and same thing with Little Dominus, but then you get past that, and some of those places are exposed.
The thing that hit me the most about walking the vineyard with you was how much it reminded me of Tokelon, the upper slope. It was that same almost 9 to 10%, just a gentle slope down off the hill, just rolling down. There wasn't extremes, which is nice from a farming standpoint, which means it's easier to work on.
Sure.
But I was really struck by how much that reminded me of walking those rows, and maybe a touch more water in the soil in Rutherford. It just felt a little more of that kind of marl, so to speak.
Well, it's Nokalon, right? North Tokalon.
Yeah, is that
I
Nokalon?
love it. Can we classify ourselves as Sokolon?
Sure. Do it, man. You can.
That sounds like a lawn that's been watered too much.
Right.
Soak a lawn.
All right. Any guesses on the number one song in 2011?
Oh, man. Ooh.
Grant, you're allowed to chime in here too, even though you read the list earlier.
I don't have a memory that long.
Nice. You are one of us.
Wow, it's 11.
Yeah.
Just
Super bass Nicki Minaj. That's insane.
Okay. You're gonna that's gonna be your answer from every yeah. Was it her that year? No.
Not at all.
Adele.
Oh, yeah.
Singing "Rolling in the Deep" was your number one song in
I
2011.
can see that.
I don't know. I mean, I read a lot of the vintage information and all
Dating a
that,
Brit
but
at the time.
it was just 11 to me was just hot.
Yeah.
I remember 2011 just being hot. You know, like it was. We got
In your personal life or actually
Yeah.
here?
Well, let's see. Carried the 4.
Oh, you were about 4 years into your marriage?
I was just going to say I was fully on into the... Yeah, no, it was the greatest time of my entire life.
Good answer. Cheers,
That was
Elaine.
you, honey. Next time, just get a puppy.
Yeah, 9 years ago. Was that your second child?
Yeah.
Good times.
Quick math.
Good times.
Right, I guys, one of us can do math.
Ooh, that smells good. That's just
Yeah, we're on.
really good.
We're on
So
to
this is hot.
2012.
This is
So
hot.
back to the
Yeah.
11.
That
There is
finishes like a rock
a
star,
touch
though.
of. There is a touch of greenness, but not in a bad way. The fruit is there. The balance is there. The acidity is there. It's a
Perfuming,
gorgeous wine.
Maybe that's why I tend to use that as a weaning wine for a lot of my European fans, because there's a lot
For
of
sure.
Mediterranean in the profile in this Morisoli Cab. I get the olive tapenade. I get a little bit of the, the herbaceous. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to use a little spice and fresh herbs in the cooking, so to speak. And
And I think it's more classic.
beautiful
It's just-
wine.
it's
Yeah.
without a doubt.
More original what you might have found here in the
From the
70s, 80s,
mid 70s or actually all through the 80s.
because those
For
and
sure.
those have historically aged a lot better than some of these other higher.
I would say one of my favorite wines ever from Napa that I was able to try, and this was at a private event up at Colgan, but got to try 78 Heights Martha's Vineyard, which was my birth year, and it was that kind of herbaceous greenness, but still like perfectly held together. And I think that 11 well-made 11s can mimic that. 15, 20 years
That's
down
what's
the
so
road.
cool about having a lineup, because
Yeah.
you really get a snapshot of each year in time.
And also how cool, like you mentioned earlier, how Ray made his wines. Very little manipulation. It's almost like he wanted to make them the same way every year. So what you saw was the reaction of the vineyard to the vintage. And like, I'm not going to do any like special tricks. This is what Morisoli was like in 08, 09, 10, 11.
Quick toast to Joe Heights, man. Without Joe, man, Joe was one of these guys that, by doing single vineyard wines as aggressively as he did, he and Joe Phelps were kind of the early pioneers of that. It was the first time you got vintage. Before that, we were blending for consistency, so you didn't get the spikes of vintage. I was making the same flavor, and it was brave of guys like Joe to go, well, each vintage might not taste exactly the same. That's a big venture, creatively, and price-wise, when you're going out into the market going, no, I know it's not going to be exactly the same. Isn't that awesome?
Unique. How radical back then, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it helps to be an early adopter of Napa Valley, to where the prices that they were paying per acre to purchase probably not as good as the prices your parents paid back in or your great grandparents.
Successful growers like Bell and Barney Rhodes, man, and Martha May, and just, which, funny enough, the Martha's Vineyard was originally owned by Bell and Barney, and they sold it to them as part of their original land and all that. And they were just, the Rhodes were, I was blessed to meet this couple as early on as I got into the Napa Valley, and I was like, man, you could be the coolest people. Like, again, there are people like yourself, and then when I meet them, I'm like, damn, I should go. I just drive home going, I should be a better person, man. I should really, God, imagine what I'd have done if I'd have just, stuck to it a little bit.
Did you hear the story about, so Bell and Barney sold the Martha's Vineyard to, the Mays?
Yes.
And
I'm sorry, Martha. I always forget your husband's name. I apologize.
The reason that they learned about Joe Heights is that was the gift Bell and Barney left on their kitchen table when they were selling that property to him and the vineyard. And so they're like, oh, Heights, and then, or maybe that was the Bell Oaks Vineyard, And so they just contacted Joe Heights, and boom, match made in heaven.
When I was a very, very early wine guy, mostly derelict busboy waiter, I just remember Heights was the wine. That was the Martha's was the quest, back in the day, and the only one was the Lake from Diamond Creek. Those were the cults before cult became a
Yeah.
thing, man. It was like, if you could get a bottle of that, you know, it's like Philip Togny's 69 Chapelet or the 58 Engelnook or the, you know, there were all these little, you know, kind of blips on the radar that it was more uncommon because they were not bottling in such small production. You were kind of bottling for consistency. So it was really fun to see that creative avant-garde get out there and be willing to risk it, man.
Are you on 2012 now?
I am.
This is delicious.
So
Smells great.
so
Yeah.
two-
Oh yeah. Sorry. We're gonna let him take these bottles home, and then after he flies, he can go through them.
So anybody wants
so
to
follow up
so
with
we'll go to
questions.
Chris's house after
Yeah.
drop it in my DMs.
Why don't you just slide right in there?
We're gonna
and,
GoPro him
a
while we-
successful landing in the DMs.
Oh man.
This is gonna be good.
Well, yeah, I'm upping your ratings. You're upping my
Yeah,
ratings.
just
2012 represents one of my favorite vintages for one major reason. It was the year where really Russell Bevan, Josh Peoples, and me, Christopher, all kind of came together at Chateau Boswell.
Oh, okay. That was the start of it.
I was the harvest intern, and then we had an assistant winemaker break an ankle, and Russell was a consultant, and so I walked into the cellars at Boswell in 2012.
Wow.
The only pirate left on deck other than Victoria Di Crescenzo. And she and I pretty much knocked out the 2012 vintage, making wine by cell phone.
Wow.
And I'm seeing all these fancy spreadsheets and production schedules and all this, and mine was a ripped box top with Sharpie written on it. I go, well, the bricks are this, you should add this, you know? Like, okay, I can do that.
That's a great vintage to get started too, because
Thank
if
you.
you can mess that one up, you get the hell
So
out.
the whole reputation from this day forward has been like, oh, dude, no, if it would have been 2011, you would have had a far different vintage. But like, you lucked out and walked into the wine that made itself, so all you could do was screw it up.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah. My first was 13.
Yeah. Oh, see,
Same kind of deal. I'm like,
It's-
yeah, I did all those punch downs.
by math, 13 was supposed to be a better vintage than 12, and
Yeah.
yet they were just different.
Oh,
man.
way different.
Yeah.
And I still haven't seen that personally.
Which
maybe
reminds me,
12,
when we do
13.
the show
I love
next
12,
week,
14, 16, 18.
we're going to be putting sort of a score against agriculture. So we're putting
we're rating
97
you
against
now.
98.
Oh.
So 97 got the scores. 98, I think, was an agriculturally better year. So it's be interesting. We're going to try them head to head next week. Rudy Cadet, if you're out there today, man, I want you to step up and be my guy for that
It's
show.
more a
So-
lane pulling for Rudy, pretty sure.
Well, you know, I think was it 98 or 99 when Dave Finney started The Prisoner.
Oh,
And
cool.
that
Oh, I
was,
think
it
that was-
99.
I wanna
He
say
had a rough
99.
year 98 and then 99. Because 98 was a rougher year for grapes.
It was, and
99
then
was,
you
Very
saw a
much
lot
so.
of replantings. That was one of those last waves of phylloxera replanting, and there's Dave running around going, "I'll take your Charbonneau, I'll take your old Petit Syrah,
Sure.
I'll take your old Zin," you know.
And
like-
for, actually, this is an interesting story. He kind of jumped in with Orange Swift after Whitehall Lane sold, and that whole block that Elyse
By the way,
got,
we met. The connection here with Orange Swift is still Whitehall Lane. Ray was the winemaker at
Yep.
Whitehall Lane. I met Dave when he was a cellar
Yeah,
rat there under
sure.
Dean Sylvester out there, man, at Whitehall.
So yeah, I always remember Dave would come around and he was always bringing my dad wine and trying to get in.
Trying to
Hey,
get-
anything
yeah,
opens
the-
up, anything
yeah.
opens
And he
up,
did,
you know?
right? He bought his
and then
Zinfandel from you.
eventually, he eventually, the Zin was actually his first thing he was purchasing, and that was what he started the Prisoner with. So
Nice.
Yeah.
in '99. So
God, those original blending sessions building the Prisoner could have been some of the funnest nights in Napa of all time.
Oh, I
man,
bet.
you know?
I mean, those were really
Food,
quality.
tables,
I mean, what,
shiners,
2,000 to 3,000, 1,000 to 3,000 cases back when it was. I mean, for that label,
Well, to
teeny
me,
tiny.
The Prisoner was the champion of Napa's old school vineyards.
Yeah.
Man, it was like the pinnacle of like, let's take all these great ancient varietals and vineyards and knock
Yeah.
out a really. And let's face it, hey, Vince Toffanelli, if you're out there, my brother, like your little addition was not too shabby either, man. You know, the great Charbonneau grower of all time.
Yeah, they
Charbonneau, there's some.
Rancho Chimiles out in Wooden Valley. They were getting fruit from there.
Charbonneau, for those of you that want to geek out, Charbonneau, if you never can track the actual heritage of a grape, you declare it from the Jura Savoie region. And so you look at Charbonneau's history, and it's either Charbonneau from Italy or a Syrah derivative coming up from the Persians, or it's, you know, so they couldn't figure it out. So they just said, if you look up all of the historical references to Charbonneau, they're like, I think it comes from Jura Savoie. So it's a good, you know. In Napa, Tempranillo and Charbonneau were planted in the middle of vineyards for one very major reason. They are the heaviest clusters in the wine business. And we were selling by the ton for those decades.
Yeah.
And Charbonneau was the secret color additive. It was the color fix for all of the big Cabernets for decades. Oh my God, just ink, like second only to like Alicante for the darkest juice you can make. So Petit Verdot had not really found a foothold. It was hard to grow, super tannic, super expensive to purchase, and so Charbonneau was your best friend in the world for color fix for a bunch of years.
Interesting. And now they'll kind of, some places are designating that little middle block as their high-end stuff.
There's a pocket north of St. Helena, south of Calistoga, that's between the two fog lines. Charbonneau requires the longest growing season of any varietal, and so there's this little pocket. The Heights, the cousins to the Heights winery, they have their Shy Poke label, which is just an exceptional wine, and they. Foley gets his Charbonneau from their property. The Turleys,
cool
you've got the Fredianis, you've got the Toffanellis, you've got the Heights. There's just a small, the Summers winery. There's just a really small pocket of those guys that still have that varietal plant.
Can you grab another glass for Chris so he can do the side by side? 750 on the right, Mag on the left.
So again, we're going 2013 now. Okay, does anybody want to guess what the number one song in 2012 was?
Well, you said 2011 was Adele. Let's say 2012 was Adele. Because she had like 4. Yeah.
So according to the AP Top 100 Rolling Stones magazine, it was Gautier's featuring Kimbra's Somebody That I Used to Know.
That was a good song.
Yeah.
I like that one.
So number one song is most purchased, most played, like, because most enjoyed, you know.
Wait, I think I went into like the spider down the water side or something.
You guys should do a remake of that music video with you with all the paint on you. You know, with wine.
Have you seen there was one band back in the day that
did the Zero G thing?
Gautier and then this band redid the song, but they were all on one guitar and they all played different parts of the guitar and sang. It was really cool. Yeah,
I remember that.
Really neat video. I end up watching other people's remakes of videos more than the band themselves.
This was just do they still make videos?
Yeah,
actually, okay.
Yeah,
what are we doing right now?
They're amazing.
Is this going to be on YouTube? Is it going to be here?
Yeah.
Are we doing the cup song?
You played me at the pool party in Vegas. Yeah.
Man, that's not right.
Yeah, I'm curious.
So, 750 for mine and the mag.
You would think the 750 is probably a little more open, but
there are some.
Just in theory.
So it's interesting because there are 3 words that were promoted in 2013 as, again, I think a mathematical vintage.
Right.
It was called early, even, and excellent.
Wow.
Now, the words early and excellent don't really meet that often. You know, you don't want to pick sooner rather than later, but I think from a grower standpoint, you're like, let me get this straight.
Excellent. It all got sold.
My entire vineyard sold. They were picked.
And I can go on vacation in beginning of November?
Yeah, so I think actually in 13, they might have been fully picked before October that year. Like, it was just one of those years.
Well, it was really dry year. I mean, that was the
13 started
Actually, 12 was started. 13 was really the drought.
Yeah, 13 we had as much rain in the entire growing season in 13 as we did like in 1 week in 12 and 11, you know. That really started that 5-year kind of like quest of like, we got no water.
Which is great for us here in America that can water as we see fit as long as we have water.
Yes.
Because then that brings up that struggle Chris was talking about earlier. He's only gonna give them water when they absolutely need it. So that's where I always make my little delineation between trust fund vines and vines that actually have to work for everything. They usually turn out better.
In the old days, it was called the Jesus Share. It was right before I scheduled my pick. You went out at night and turned the water on because it would plump the grapes up a little bit, make everything weigh a little heavier, and so you just turned water into wine. So that was called the Jesus Share back in the day.
Nice.
Cool.
These days with acreage contracts, we've solved a lot of that skullduggery because you get the same by the acre, so why would I spend the money to water it if I don't have to?
Well, yeah, they still do that in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
It's all Jesus Share there because it's all about the weight.
Not true, man, Mr.
Mr.
Sorry. Clayton. I'm looking at you in your cowboy hair right now. You're growing
sorry,
some
not
serious
for
Zinfandel out
yeah,
there,
the
right?
smaller vineyards. I mean, they're doing it the same way we are, but then the ones that have certain contracts by certain $1 trillion companies. Do a little
Are you
bit.
seeing a difference?
Yeah, can you pass me the mag?
Immediately, not sooner.
Ooh, ooh,
Please.
ooh.
Whoa, two hands.
Hey, man.
Yeah, I do. I just trying to put my finger on it.
Now, I got to tell you right now, again, I'm the loudest voice about not aging wine in this whole collection of shows. There's not a single one of these I wouldn't drink tonight. There's not a single one of these I wouldn't let go for a few more years and drink down the road. I mean, this has been an amazing flight of very consistent, beautiful Cabernet. But the thing, and Ray, man, this is all on you. They're not the same wine.
Oh, no.
Here. They are such a reflection of the vintage. I marvel at that, and well done, my brother.
That's what I've seen just in reading all his notes that are specific and so detailed. Thank you, Mike Trotta.
Thank you, Mike Trotta.
But
the man
they are
his blue jeans.
and a lot of times I would see consistently in 3 to 4 vintages in a row, 96% Cab, 4% Petit Verdot, same oak profile, same. It's like 60% New French Oak for 20 months to 2 years, and it's like the same winemaking style every single year. So it makes sense that each of these are their own unique, Mother Nature example of Morisoli that year. Really neat. I mean, that's where, God, what do we have? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 6. So you got a 6-pack right there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to get, after we kind of get through the 13 750 to Magnum comparison, then we're going to jump to the 18. But you have a 6-pack right here that'll blow your mind.
And they're available. They're not a ton of them. Like, I can probably do about a couple of cases worth of these kind of verticals left of our library. And I have magnums of the entire vertical.
But imagine 6 people getting together and you having, whatever you want to cook that night. You get together, you barbecue, you're still within your small little bubble group, and 1 bottle of each of these, and you share them. Everybody gets, 4 ounces of each wine. That's amazing. For the low cost of whatever we charge you.
In my house, we call them Magnum parties because everybody shows up with a large format for the whole party, but you have to bring a course that matches that vintage. So maybe we'll put Gary Paneer, if you're out there.
Ooh.
Maybe we'll put a chef's challenge. Maybe we'll put a different chef to each vintage. What? Or do we do the same chef for 6 vintages?
We got the same winemaker, same idea.
So I don't
Right?
show up.
You're gonna be. Do you eat before flying? Like, do you have any superstitions?
We should go somewhere to eat. That's the key.
Before or after?
No, but during.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Get it?
That's how we
Got it.
plan the flight. Where do we want to go tonight, guys?
So there's 2 landings.
That's why it sucked when they closed the Carnelian room. You can still land on the top of that hotel.
Is that how you knock out 2 birds? Like, hey, we can land twice.
Yeah, we go
restaurant
somewhere. We go get gas, get some food.
So what
5
has
cents
the
back.
best helicopter landing pad on the roof deck?
Oh, the Queen's Hospital in Honolulu.
Yeah!
Let me know when you go there. I got some friends out there.
That was fun.
But helicopter.
On a helicopter?
Man, look.
You
I'm
choppered
gonna-
it there?
Of course, yeah.
I guess they have to.
I'm
How
gonna
else
fix
they
wing
gotta get there?
Cessna, or I'm gonna in a plane. If the engines go and things go, I can still glide. It's still an airplane.
Oh, you can
I
still glide in a
glide,
helicopter.
yeah.
Yeah, you just look off your nose, and that's where you're going.
Bo's nose?
Perfect. Bo's nose.
Bo's nose.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But no, you know what? The 13 actually seems a little more perfumey. Like it's got more of a nose to it.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is.
Wait, the
maybe a
13
little-
out of Mag?
Magnum, sorry.
Okay.
The Magnum, and then the 750 is more.
The 13, I'm getting what they call the Garrigue.
Actually, more. It smells a little older actually from the 750 and a little more perfume.
For
It's
sure.
almost younger.
Makes
than
sense.
The Mag.
And that's-
probably because it's going to age quicker than.
Well, that's the hope, right? That's the theory, so to speak, that they age differently. But I think it's interesting that the wine is actually slightly different. Like, it's not the same wine aging slower. There's a different expression of this vintage in a larger format.
Both are soft, but I almost think this Mag is.
There's a lavender thing going on for me, like
Yeah.
sage.
Like
I
you
was gonna
said,
say there's like that.
tough floral.
Yeah.
Is it the perfume? But yeah, what a way to come to a party. That's their statement there.
Well,
that's just cool.
As we often promote here at Elyse, walk in the door with a statement in your hand.
Yeah.
I also
A wine
found
statement.
out that we had 607 Morisoli Magnums, and I think I have sold 5 of them.
Yes.
Just by
Who's your lucky recipient?
3 different people. I just
What?
yeah, and then we
You
had
spreading
the
the wealth,
Hain,
man.
which is the
Cool.
AKA, and the How Mountains in. Well, those were Zins. Yeah, I doubt we have '07 cab because I think Ray and Nancy were smart enough to
See how
grab
they
what
are?
they could.
Mm-hmm.
So Ray and Nancy, if you want to send any 07s back our way, man,
We'll split it with you when we sell
I
it.
mean, we'll pay for shipping.
I probably have a few of those. 07.
No, let's drink.
Now, we couldn't finish the show. First, again, next week, Tuesday, we're going to do the head-to-head 97 against 98. But we're going to finish the Morisoli conversation today with the new sheriff in town.
You got it.
So
Not for you. I mean, just
we're
18
taking
to 13, go back
one of the
and
things
forth.
about us as a
Smelling.
new generation here, or a new era, is taking a grower and a vineyard like Morisoli.
Actually, it'd
And
be
I'm
fun
not going to put
drink
you on the
that.
spot,
We haven't even
but
drunk any of this yet.
in your
Like, it was
limited
dump like
time
that.
with Russell Bevan,
Sure.
are there things happening in your vineyard that you didn't expect or didn't predict or weren't sort of like normally going to do? And after tasting the results of working with us for a couple of vintages, are there things that have gone like
Well,
any light bulbs?
yes.
It's
one-
okay to say
one
no
big
to that
light bulb,
question.
I pay a little more attention now when I'm walking the vineyard because every once in a while a big bear of a man will come out and give me a huge hug, and that's Russell.
Yeah. He's known to
Well, I thought
crack
you were gonna
ribs,
talk
like his
Ray.
enthusiasm, you know. Yeah.
Ray would do that, yeah. But yeah, the panache that Russell brings is something that is really impressive. Yeah, as far as technique and style, that's my dad. I do remember that Russell came in and said one day, he said, "Hey, we want to do, maybe a couple different things, and we want to try this." And my dad said, "Yeah, no, I think we're gonna keep doing it this way." And I was like, "Yeah, but what about?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really want to do it this way." And so it was very set. And but I think Russell's been happy. And what we do on that though, we do meet in the middle on leaf pulling, watering.
That's cool.
And obviously harvest dates, and that's the winemaker's call. But
Because Russell's notorious for the first thing he says is, "I need one more guide wire." Yeah,
course.
you're gonna. So if you have to understand how much total acreage planted?
42 of cab.
42 acres of cab. Okay. If you have any concept of what it is to add one more wire to a vineyard, it's not like just adding a little, chrome detailing on your car because you bought it. It's a big deal, man. It takes a lot of work.
But one thing I think last year we did do, now that I can actually think about it, is we went through, dropped a little bit more, dropped some shoulders,
Yeah.
pulled some more leaves, and that was.
So shoulders
was
for
kinda
you,
what
if
we
you're
were
looking at a
talking
grapevine, it has this whole set of grapes. So you've got grapes that grow down. You've got these guys that grow like this. It's like this extra cluster right on top of yours. They're called shoulders. Just like when their canopy is developing, we pull this lateral that's never going to produce fruit. It's just going to take up carbohydrates and hormones. And so you're literally by hand. This is not a machine. This is pulling these things off by hand and clipping these shoulder clusters down and all this. This does not happen overnight. This is hard work.
I made that decision in March, beginning of COVID. I said, you know what? In the next 12 months, I'm going to drop my shoulders. And so I just stopped working out. I stopped doing anything. And I did it,
Yeah, me too.
Just,
Feeling it, yeah.
trimming.
So now I feel like I can step into that Alfred Hitchcock thing from the old show where he just stepped into his little line drawing.
Question.
Back.
So recap with what your favorite wines were.
Ooh.
So we're on the 18. I'm not on it yet. Can you grab one more glass? This will be for you, Christopher. Because here I have something I would never pour out of, but because he didn't take one sip and he just dumped all his.
Oh, you're going to do the amalgamation.
I already did it in my glass, and it tastes really good. It's like the Abacus from ZD. And this, just me doing it, seems so disgusting. But he literally took not one sip of anything.
Especially when you picture, Dean using that.
So this is really cool. And actually, can you grab me one more glass? Because I want to compare it to the 18.
For me personally, I got to tell you, just tasting through the flight, the 08 impressed me.
Yeah, me too.
A lot. I mean, I thought that was from fruit to structure. That one I thought was the most exciting out of the library flight. But nobody. Our 2018 is so hedonistically just. This is the thing about Russell as a grower, working with growers, is finding that magic spot, that sweet spot within a vineyard, and then just exploding that.
Oh,
and that's
wow,
like a
that
Michelin
is
chef walking into your vineyard going,
flavor.
you've got this thing, this lavender thing that works in the middle of your vineyard. Let's see if we can just blow that up, man.
Which one was your
sure.
favorite nose?
The 09 is my favorite old one, and then the freshness and the just complexity of the 18 are less.
Nice.
So I'm on for 09 and 18.
Garrett?
Nice.
I would say there's a 6-year thing going on. Oh no, I guess 4 and 6. So 08, 12, and 18.
Cool.
But the 13, both of them, and especially at a Magnum,
Yeah.
that 13, weirdly, I would think it's so much tighter, but it had some openness, and like you said, that perfumey floral characteristic. But I don't know. I think you got to try this Chris Morisoli combination. Well, I mean, you're going to have the bottle, so you can
You don't have
doctor
to
him
call
up
it the
however you
spit
want.
bucket blend. You don't have to call it that, but you know.
Well, and also, I mean, it'll get even better if you doctor him accordingly.
So this is where it's more
Heavy
fascinating for
12s.
us. We need enough of the firmament out there to buy a 6-pack of this vertical, go home, open them with friends on the block. Like, we had this whole COVID thing where in my house, I tell all my friends in the neighborhood that I'm opening these wines. This is what we're cooking for dinner. So we cook, and then out on the picnic table in our driveway, we just put the open bottle with that little cork nestled in. And so the neighbors come by and just pluck a bottle and go home and have it and just text us later like, oh my God, that 09 was amazing. You're so right, you know? So there are ways that we can still be social with the beverage and not make it, you know, horrible.
If you did this with like a Solera system of sherry, and you have, you know, predominantly 08, 09, and 10, maybe even 11, like that's your 50% of the wine or more. And then you just touch up with some 12 and 13 and then a smallest amount of 18, just freshen it up. All of a sudden
Garrett,
you've
I
got...
feel like we got to film another show of you doing that after this.
Yeah, well, I mean, if ZD's Abacus
Oh, by
gets
the
like
way.
$650 a bottle, and that's just what they're doing. They're taking older vintage wine, mixing it together, and people go nuts over it.
Any guesses for 2013's #1 song? Controversial.
I don't know.
Robin Thicke.
I was going to say, have you
blurred
watched?
lines.
Have you
That's
watched
right,
the
man.
uncensored version of that video?
No.
Watch it.
On
It's
that
awesome.
note,
In 2018, any guesses? What was the #1 song only a couple
God,
years
that
ago?
was only...
God's Plan from Drake. What?
I don't even know who he is.
Okay, so next
heard of her.
Tuesday, 2 o'clock Pacific time, we're doing 97 against 98. Wow, this show, we need to do like a part 2. Like we need
Yeah,
to
we need to do
cliffhanger
one
for
where
this.
he's not
Yeah,
flying
you know,
some
that
more
night.
and some history
Chris,
and
thank
some-
you, brother. I appreciate
Thanks,
you.
guys.
You know,
Cheers.
yeah.
Thank you
Cheers.
for coming.
And thank all of y'all.
Awesome.